What's up, Tiger fans? It's Morgan here with the Morgan Thomas Show, and I wanted to ask a question or deep dive into a question I think everybody is really wondering, and that is, what has happened to DJ Uiagalelei from last year to this year, and can it be corrected next year? Before we get into the video, make sure you like this video and you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow us over on Facebook if you have one. And then also follow us on Twitter at The Morgan T Show. All right, so let's get into the video here. What has happened to DJ? What's been the biggest difference from 2020 to 2021? We see a small body of work from 2020 where he had 781 yards against Boston College and Notre Dame. He had 5 touchdowns and had a completion percentage of 67%. Compare that to this year, he has 8 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and under 50% completion percentage in 2021. So, what's been the biggest issue? Well, Tony Elliott, offensive coordinator, talked about it today in his recent press conference. And let me give you some of his quotes here. So, when asked about the previous season, Tony Elliott said, "That's DJ to me. Everything is constantly changing." Elliott said, "If you want to compare him to a standard, you look at Trevor Lawrence or Deshaun Watson. They, for the most part, had their pieces in place that they could feed on that could help them in a situation to make things right, where DJ's pieces have constantly been changing. They're constantly moving around, and he's got to be able to persevere through that." Now, I don't think it's not just that the players have been changing around him, because there has been some consistency there. For the most part, Justin Ross has been there. For the most part, Joseph Ngata has been there. But really, Frank Ladson never got off to anything. E.J. Williams has kind of been in and out. And now you're starting to see Bo Collins and Dakari Collins get in there. Well, those guys weren't there at the beginning of the season. So I definitely understand where Tony Elliott's coming from. Oh, by the way, don't even forget, Will Taylor was there at the beginning of the season, and now he's not there. Yeah, Will Brown thrown in there. And so there's a lot of different parts there that are not exactly the same as what you're used to. Oh, I didn't even think about this. Braden Galloway, somebody who was injured and now no longer playing this season. So yes, I would definitely agree that it's difficult when you're the leader of a team, when you're the quarterback, to keep consistent in your performance when everything else around you is changing, not just wide receivers and tight ends, but also on the offensive line. We could go through a laundry list of those guys who have been in and out every single week. So that, I think, is a huge factor for DJ and not being able to perform. On the radio recently, we talked about it, and one thing is that he doesn't have a go-to guy. You look back at those guys like Trevor Lawrence, like Deshaun Watson, like even Taj Boyd or Kelly Bryant. Those guys had T. Higgins. Those guys had Deion Kane. They had Hunter Renfrow. They had Amari Rodgers. They had Adam Humphries. They had guys, and specifically, as we've talked about many times on the show, a guy in the slot to count on. Because of injuries, because of COVID, Clemson has really not been able to find a slot guy until just recently with Bo Collins, which has been the best success story, really one of the better success stories of the year. They originally wanted Brandon Spector. He's not been able to play. Then they wanted Will Taylor. He's not been able to play. Then they went to Justin Ross, and he's really not a traditional slot guy, not a good position for him. Then after him, they tried Will Brown, but he's not as talented as some of the others on the team. So then they went to Bo Collins, and he has seemed to kind of stick in that position. I hope they continue to keep him there, even with Justin Ross out, because it seems like that's the best position for him. Now, there is not a go-to guy, but also there's been a ton of drops. We saw a lot of drops at the beginning of the season, and then they seem to have gotten cleaned up for the past couple of games. All of a sudden against UConn, here comes the drops again. I don't really know what's going on with that. I know as a fan watching this team in person, it is so frustrating to see when DJ gets the ball on target, it's dropped. Now, I will say in the past, he has thrown balls that have been extremely too fast. But if it hits you in the hands, it hits you in the hands. I understand it's coming at you fast. I know that. But again, most people you ask, if it hits you in the hands, you need to catch it. I think the success story again here, though, when it comes to personnel, is Bo Collins. Now, when it comes to the rest of the wide receiver group, you're going to have a whole new group this time around against Wake Forest because, again, Justin Ross is not going to be there. Looks like Joseph Ngata is going to be dealing with some injuries as well. As you know, Ladson's not there. So definitely a difficult situation for someone to go against a top 10 team, even though it's at home, to try to win. We'll see what DJ can do, but I can agree with Tony's assessment there that it has been difficult for him to find a consistent group to help him win. All right, so what's some other things he said? Let's get into another comment that he made. So when you go back, here's another quote from him on the UConn game, specifically talking about his misfires and bad throwing and overthrowing guys again. That seemed to have come back up. When you go back and watch it, he wasn't able to follow through on his throws. We're still working on him to keep his feet pointed at his target and making sure he's not throwing off balance and trying to make sure he's not throwing across his body. Again, you're talking about a young man that's ultra talented, that's been able to do these things, but as he goes forward, there are just going to be a couple of things that we're going to try to help him clean up because the margin for error in the passing game, the higher you go up, the smaller that margin of error is. All right, so now we've addressed the players around DJ, and that has definitely been an issue in seeing him be successful. But also we're addressing DJ's mechanics, which if you're a Tiger fan, this is nothing new to you, but he listed following through, he listed having a poor spiral, he listed footwork, not being pointed to the target, being off balance, throwing across his body, and that can be extremely frustrating. Again, once you get past the drops, once you get past the bad routes, once you get to somebody you trust, all of a sudden you overthrow that player, then that's where it can get extra frustrating for the team, the coaches, the Tiger fans all together, and I'm sure DJ and everybody else as well. Some more quotes from Tony Elliott. I think some of it is throwing across the body a little bit, and I think in the game, some of it was not being able to step up and follow through. When you finish, you've got to finish coming down with your index finger being the last thing that touches the ball. When you can't follow through, you might not be able to complete your throwing motion to put the tight spiral on the ball. He throws it hard. It comes out hard. There's been an instance in practice where it gets where it needs to be, but it may not have been a tight spiral on it. I think you look at some of the quarterbacks in the NFL, it isn't always a pretty tight spiral, but it gets to where it needs to be. And that may be a mixture of reasons why there's the drops. Not only are they sometimes too hard, but also they're not really the best spiral in the world. But again, these are mechanics that are going to have to be worked out. You've got Brandon Streeter, you've got Tony Elliott, and anybody else, JP Lossman, anybody else that can come in and help these guys or help DJ improve. But there's one other factor that I think is going to play big, not only for DJ, but be a telling sign of where this offense and where this team is going to go in the future. I mentioned this on one of my live shows, and when it comes to an elite offense, you do not have time to wait around for someone to figure it out. You're getting paid millions. Prices of tickets are going up. Players are now getting NIL deals and getting paid for their likeness and their potential ability to play on a field or ability to play on the field. I know people say, oh, it's not really pay for play. Yes, it kind of is, even though you're not saying it is. Players are getting benefits from being a good player or a potential good player because of the NIL deals. So it's going to get more complicated, and you're going to want to see, as a fan base and as a nation, you're going to want to see these players perform from the start. And also, a lot of players who are anticipating going to the NFL are not looking to stay around for 4 years. Teams that are also looking to stay competitive in the recruiting market are not wanting to figure it out over 4 years' time. Team like in a position of Clemson that's trying to get back to where they were quickly, I think the fan base and the coaches don't want to take to 2023. So I hope you see where I'm going with this. DJ had 2020, where he was a freshman, really wasn't his shot. It was his time to learn. It was his time to get his mechanics right. And it was his time to prepare himself and understand the playbook. We're at 2021, where he is the man. His mechanics are not right. There are some things that he needs to still learn, and that's okay because he's a sophomore. But he is the man, and he really has another year as a junior, which is 2022, where he is going to start to see competition come up from the freshman ranks. This year, really no competition for him. Next year, though, you have Cade Klubnik coming in. Cade Klubnik right now has 26 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. He's passing for 69% completion rate, and he's playing on the third best team in the nation in Westlake in Austin, Texas. He is a gamer. You watch his film, he is someone that reminds you more of a typical quarterback that Clemson is used to. Someone who is extremely mobile. Someone who can throw successfully and accurately on the run. And someone that can take over a game even by themselves. Now, those are some qualities that we have seen DJ be able to show at times. Can he be so consistently to a point where he can win every game, win contested games, win from behind every single week? It's not just about once or twice or here and there every other week. When it comes to college football, you cannot afford to lose one game. Maybe you can afford to lose one game if it happens to the right team. You cannot afford to lose 2 games. You definitely cannot afford to lose 3 games and still be considered an elite team. In the ACC, as we've seen, it's extremely difficult to lose 3 games and even be considered a top 25 teams. A lot of people like to complain about where Clemson is right now, but it all goes back to who they've lost to and who they've won to. 2 of their wins in the 2021 season came against UConn, one of the worst teams in the country, and against South Carolina State, it's not even an FBS team. So those 7 out of 3, there's actually 5 out of 3 that I would say are from teams that would be seriously considered teams that you should count against your wins. Your losses, on the other hand, there have been some great losses, but what are great losses at the end of the day? Still losses. DJ does not have another 4 years to figure it out. He doesn't have 3 years. He really, in my opinion, has next year to figure it out. If he can't figure it out and Cade Klubnik can show that he can be more mobile, that he can be more accurate, it will be extremely difficult for the coaching staff to keep Cade Klubnik on the bench while DJ is still trying to figure it out. I don't like to be negative towards any player. I'm just stating what I see as facts. In today's world, in college football, it is win now and win often. And if that's not happening, then people get very agitated. As you see on Twitter, social media, people already write you off immediately. Clemson is now in a situation they did not want to be in. They fell off so hard that there needs to be an immediate snap back to the mean, or there is going to be even more grumbling in 2022 from the national media and from the fan base as well. Not saying that those fans are not fans, but the fact of the matter is, it is extremely troubling for a team to go from a top 10 offense to 108th in the nation out of 130 teams in one season. All the things happening are key factors, and there's been a lot of crazy things that makes me think that this season has been cursed and just want to get to the next year. But it all goes back for me there's not a lot of time. So whatever DJ has to do in the offseason to get with a quarterback coach, to get with somebody that can help him stay consistent or get to be consistent, to help him with his fundamentals, he needs to do so. The coaches believe in him. Dabo Swinney definitely believes in him. A lot of the fan base sees, including myself, sees those glimpses of what we saw versus Boston College and Notre Dame last year. He can't always rely on having the best players out there, NFL draft picks out there. He has to be able to make plays when there's no plays out there. He has to be able to make players around him better. He is the one that is dependent upon for this offense to be successful. Can he do it? Well, 2021, I would love to see DJ finish out strong with all through the injuries, all through all the issues, all through the drops, all through the changing personnel. I'd love to see Clemson continue to improve and build upon what they've had. And maybe UConn game was just an anomaly or maybe an outlier for the season. And maybe they can go and actually beat Wake Forest. There's still a chance they can beat Wake Forest. There's still a great chance they can beat South Carolina. That means they'll be 9-3. And then there's still a great chance that they could get to 10-3 in a bowl game. They could be 9-3. They might even be able to get into the ACC championship game if things all work out perfectly. So this team could still be, with all their problems, a 10-win team, which is amazing to say. And then they can take that momentum, and that's what it's all about now in November. It's not so much about getting to the playoffs. It's about finishing out strong, taking that momentum into spring, bringing in the new guys, getting them up to date, and improving upon how you finished in 2021. All right, so let me know what you think about in the comments. Do you think that DJ can get it fixed? Do you think that he can get it fixed quickly enough to be able to be the elite passer for an elite team that he needs to be? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.